do the introduction as I'm the interviewer this time.
You are the interviewer.
Turning the tables. So, welcome to Pure Art 360 edition 4. Have we really got to edition 4?
I know.
Gosh.
How mad is that?
Amazing. So I'm Louisa Crispin and I'm here interviewing Pure Founder Lesley Samms, turning the tables on her for a change. She usually does all the interviewing, so it's about time that she sat behind the camera the other way round. I do have a wonderful memory of back in, must have been about 2013, 2014. We had somebody come to film you at Powder Mills at the Pure Arts Autumn Art Fair. And I think it was probably the first time you'd really properly been the other side of a camera. And I had to stand behind the guy that was interviewing you and filming you so that you had somebody to talk to. And it was a real lesson in ways to make yourself more comfortable behind the camera. And Pure 360 has given us that confidence as well. So it's been a really wonderful experience. So for me, it's great. It felt like an absolutely mad experience when we first started. When you first suggested it, lockdown had happened. It was like, how are we going to do this? Now, being very comfortable on Zoom meetings and all of those sorts of things, but it was so different then. None of us had any experience. So let's backtrack a little bit. I'm sure the audience probably know, but just take us through what Pure is. How it started and what your dream was at the time.
So there wasn't really a dream. It started out of a necessity. So we'd done I'd moved back down to Sussex, Kent, Sussex, because of a family situation. I'd left my gallery in Buckinghamshire, which I'd absolutely loved. I'd set up with a friend and it was the first gallery I'd owned, and that kind of came out literally out of nowhere. Someone offered us a premises and said, do you want to do this? And I was a photographer at the time, and I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And I was working with a friend who was also very creative, and we kind of did it. And then during the process of doing the gallery, I became very aware of how artists would come into the gallery and sit and chat to me. And my background in business was very helpful to them because they were struggling, a lot of them, not just with confidence, but with how literally to run a business. And they hadn't been given those skills of how to run a business. Of course, my background is in banking and in marketing. So I was doing that, but dealing with life. I was dealing with a young family. I'd had Christy by then, and I just had Jamie. So he was a baby. And I was running the gallery, and my dad was very ill, and they were in Kent and I was in Buckinghamshire. I was just dealing with life, really, just coping, getting on. And I didn't understand that what I was doing then was growing resilience, because I don't think that phrase had been coined then.
Nobody really even talked about business for artists back then.
No, I was just doing me. If people would come in and ask me questions, and I would just go, well, I can't tell you how to do it, but I can tell you how I did it and how I'm managing to make money and, pay my bills and stuff. And then, as I say, this life moment happened where my father became very ill and I had to move back home. So I sold my gallery to one of the artists who I was then representing. And she ran that gallery up until about 4 or 5 years ago. So it went on for like another 20 odd years, which was really, really pleasing to watch.
That's incredible for a gallery, because 5 years is a good run for most of them, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think it was an artist run gallery. And I think that does have a lot of, that has legs, because financially it works out better. If you're not, you're at least selling your own work and getting 100% of the money, then I think financially that does help underpin the finances of a gallery. The other good method is if you own the building.
Yes.
Because you're not then at the whim of someone putting up your rent, etc. So, there's a lot of variables on there. So I moved back down to Ken, and for a little while I just concentrated on my family because my dad was very ill. And I had Charlie. the lovely Charlie, who's now 15, which is another
Oh, God.
shock to the rest of us. How could he now? Nearly going on towards 16. He's going to do his GCSEs. And we all remember him as a tiny little baby, you know, me walking around with him on my hip in an art fair, trying to go, yes, Vincent, could you put that board over there? So I set up this group called the A21, which didn't have a name at the time. It was just friends. I just like started gathering arty friends around me. Really, again, out of my own necessity to be with creative people. And then the art fair happened in Battle, again, out of necessity. They needed something to do, and I had the skills to be able to put it on for them. And then there was a bit of a hiatus with the people who were running that art fair with me. And I decided that actually just an art fair wasn't really in alignment with me. That wasn't really what I was about. I'm much more, and again, this didn't have a title or a name at that point. It was just, I knew I was much better at working with people, helping them be successful, giving them ideas and skills that I had, sharing my skills with them so they could go off and be successful. And that gave me a lot of pleasure. And that's when I set up Pure. So I sat down with a very good friend called Bridget Evell and her husband, and they kind of brainstormed with me what it was I wanted to do. And that's where Pure was born. And you asked me previously about where did the name come from?
Yeah.
And that was through that brainstorming. And I remember it was in my kitchen here, and all the family were sitting one Sunday having lunch, and I had my old computer, because obviously these fancy computers again weren't a thing like 14 years ago. I had my old computer in the kitchen. I kept leaving the dinner table and going and having another chat with Bridget, and we were trying out different names, and I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel like me. And then we happened on the word pure, and I was like, that's it. I just purely want to work with artists because I really resonate and I feel in alignment with them. I didn't use that word alignment because, again, I didn't know what that word was. I just feel I felt comfortable. I felt right. I felt like I was doing what I was meant to do when I'm with creative people. And the word pure just kind of embodied that. And so we were like, well, we'll go with that then. And then I went back to the dinner table, carried on having dinner.
And Pure was born.
And Pure was born literally on that Sunday afternoon through a dialogue of what about this? How do you think that? So I'm eternally grateful to Bridget because she held my hand through that process, and her husband, Gareth.
What did you think it was at that point?
At that point, I thought I was just a person helping other people be happy, get through some of those trials that, like, at that point, I started doing those surgeries in powder mills where I'd say, I'm going to be in powder mills today.
Mm-hmm.
Come and sit with me and have a chat. And I'd be there all day. I don't know whether you remember that. And they'd be bringing me tea all day. And I'd just sit there and I'd say, right, what's your burning question? What's the thing that's really keeping you awake at night? And they go, this. And I go, okay, well, let's do some chatting and brainstorming. And let's see if we can find out a route for you to get round it. And I did that a few times, and then people go, oh, that was amazing. And I got around that problem. And now I've come to another problem. Can we do that again? And I go, yeah, of course. So I do another day. And I kind of called them surgeries because it felt like I was sitting there, and I'd done this in my business career. You know, we'd go into a room, we'd brainstorm. I don't have all the ideas. I don't have all the answers. And I've always said that. I don't know the answer to this. But what we can do is we can brainstorm it through collectively, and then we can try some stuff. And if we try it once and it's a disaster, we'll forget about that and we'll never talk about it again. I'm sure you remember me saying that.
I think I've heard that phrase so many times in so many meetings.
Let's just give it a go. And
Yes.
if it's a disaster, we'll never talk about it again. And if it's successful, we'll go, we knew that. We knew that was going to be great.
Yes.
Of course, that was going to be a perfect solution. And that was
And presumably, you were finding that a lot of the things, the things people were coming to you with were very much the same thing each time.
What I was finding was a lot of it was to do with their own inner dialogue of, oh, someone said I couldn't do that. So I'd say, well, have you tried this? They go, oh, no, Granny Mavis told me when I was 4 that you don't do that. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you could give it a go. Let's give it a go. And if it's a disaster, we'll never talk about it again. And if it works, then that's great. We can keep going, because I realized that it's the inaction that's the problem.
Yes.
And a lot of the times what we do is we prevent ourselves from taking action. We make those terrible things called assumptions. We assume something because of something we may be heard. And at that point, I didn't understand a lot about brain science. I hadn't done any training or learning or anything. So I didn't understand all this stuff that we know now, you know, about how the hippocampus and the amygdala and how our brain stores information and how it just chucks it back up to us in random bits of information that are sometimes absolutely useless and actually can be the problem, not the solution, because it doesn't understand. How our brain doesn't understand what's real and what's imagined. It thinks it's all the same. I didn't know all of that. All I knew was what I had been through in my life experience. And that's what I was using to underpin my working with people. And we carried on doing the art fairs. And I'm sure you remember, I'd come to the private view and I'd have a queue of people waiting to ask me questions. And I was like, oh, I just want to have a glass of champagne and a nice time.
We're just having an exhibition. I need a rest.
I need a rest. And there'd be people going, yeah, but I just got a question. I just got a question. I started to realise that lots of people could do exhibitions. Plenty of people could hang an exhibition. Maybe the curation I was very, very good at.
You were, definitely.
But it was a coping technique. And because, you know, you're presented with 250 pieces of artwork that you haven't seen before, and you're told in 24 hours that's got to be on the wall. A lot of people will cave at that. I was like, that's all right. I've worked for Coca-Cola, quite frankly. And this is a walk in the park. This is a dream. And so I realized I was really good at that, but it was more about the coping technique of doing it than the doing it, because I think I could train people to actually do it. Gathering
that was one of the lovely things that we all had. Yeah, we had that chance to experience it with you. You put a team around you. You didn't try and do it all yourself. You put a team around you, and you were giving us experiences that we couldn't get from other places. So that was really valuable.
Yeah, and that's when I started to learn that actually, and it's bizarre because when I was at school, when they asked me when I was about 10, what did I want to do? I said I wanted to be a teacher. And then they put me into, when I was about 14, they sent me to a junior school. A primary school, actually. They were tiny little children. And I went in and I was all enthusiastic. And I was like, oh, what can I do? How can I help? And they were like, no, you don't help. You just sit there. I was like, sorry. And then a child wet itself. And I was like, and they were like, yeah, you've got to go off and take this child to the toilet. I was like, oh, no, that wasn't what I thought this was all about. And then they put me in the art room because I'd always been arty, although I'm very academic. So I'm a complete mixture. But I've been drawing since I was like 3, and I'd been sent on drawing lessons by my parents, and I had a private tutor in drawing from about 5. So I knew I was very arty, and my Auntie Joan, who was my mum's best friend, we always called them aunties in those days. She was a teacher, and I spent a lot of my holidays with her, and she always had us at the beginning of the summer holidays. We had a creative project that we had to do. You know, that I realize now, having had children, that was very clever. Give them something to keep them going right through the summer holidays. So I knew I was very arty, but I was very academic. And I started helping this child who was obviously showing quite good signs of being arty. And I was told off. You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to get involved with them. You just got to sit there and make sure that they go to the toilet or get a drink. And that put me off. That was it. At 14, I was like, hell, get me out of here. They said the next thing, you'll really appreciate this, is hilarious. The next thing they did was say, okay, that didn't work. We'll send you to a library. Me, a library. A library.
No.
And I was told to be quiet. Sorry, Ted's just arrived.
Ted.
Hey, Teddy.
Hello, Ted.
So I was like, oh no, that's not working for me either. So then I just happened to go with a friend to an interview, and I was offered this job in a bank, and just as a Saturday, not a Saturday girl, but like a summer intern thing. And then I met my husband, and I never left. Stayed there for quite a while. But it was life-changing, that was. But that was just a kind of like one of those, you say yes. I think that showed me that that very much is what I do. I said to my parents, well, I'll do it. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just leave and go back to art school. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So that kind of is my personality, is that I'm not scared of giving anything a go once, as long as it's legal. Yeah. Or I have done a pretty good quick risk assessment and know I'm not going to die. Although very
positive about things, about going for it and giving it a try. And,
I'll give pretty much anything a go once, and then if it's a disaster, we never talk about it again.
Never talk about it again.
Never talk about it again. So I am a very positive person, and I'm a very happy person. And I think when I was in the bank, although I stayed for quite a while because I met my husband, and and I was young, and I had a lot more energy then, and I could be much more resilient to things. I did feel at the end it was like the Death Eaters in Harry Potter sucking my soul out of me, because I was not with my people, I was not with my tribe.
Yeah.
And eventually it was making me ill. So then I left there and I went and got this job in marketing, which again is a very long story that I'm not going to go into. But again, it was a lesson in, well, I'll just give it a go then. And I turned out to be really good at it. But I learned something else then, which is just because you're good at something doesn't mean you have to do it.
Yeah. And that's a huge dilemma for a lot of people, that there are so many choices that you could make. It's how do you decide which direction to go, what to do. There's artists that are very competent at all styles, and how do we decide where to?
And that's really funny, because that's a really important part of the program that I wrote over lockdown. We're kind of jumping ahead here. But what I've seen with the program, because I've embedded that principle into the program, is that I've had artists come into the program who have been absolutely well known as being and having very good success in drawing, for instance.
Yeah.
And now they're oil painting, but they're happy. They were really good at the drawing, but they weren't happy. Now they're doing the oil painting. They're really good at the oil painting, and they're happy. I have another artist who came into it as a sculptor and now is drawing. Very good as a sculptor, but now happy, in alignment with themselves, feeling joyful, drawing.
Brilliant.
And that's the thing, I think, is that I've done lots of stuff. So I'm now brave. I'm like, it's okay. I'm offered another opportunity. I'll take it. As I say, I'll take it. If it's not right for me, I now know the signs.
Yes, that's true. That really helps. And I've certainly found that Pure has helped to give me a confidence. And it is about doing things, isn't it? If you keep doing things, you become more confident in every way. And I know
confidence comes from action.
Yes. Yeah, very much so. So you were running art fairs. You were giving one-to-one guidance and mentoring.
Didn't know that was a thing. Didn't know that's what I was doing. I didn't know that it didn't have no label. I've never had a label when I've started something. The label has always come afterwards.
You always, to me, seem to have a huge number of ideas that go into a melting pot that we brainstorm and talk about, and then something funnels out of it, and then eventually that something gets a name. And that's and we've evolved so much over the years with that, but still keeping that basic principle of supporting artists and giving artists confidence and working out where to go with them.
And it's a collective, as you very quite rightly put there. I don't like to work on my own. I'm a
No.
people person, and I don't have all the answers and all the ideas. They're not all mine. But what I will do is I will listen, and I've trained myself to listen, and I now really value other people's ideas. And if it's a good one, I am very happy to go with it, and I'm very happy to say that was your idea.
Yes.
But look, we're doing it. How great is that? And that's
Yeah.
really confidence building for people as well. Yeah, I don't need to own the ideas. I am now very comfortable in my skin. I don't need to take credit for other people's ideas.
Was that helped by doing the courses that you took? The is it the NLP and the you're doctor now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, you've done masters.
Yeah,
that's
we're
right.
heading there.
We're heading there. So that's what next.
Yeah, that's next. Yes, I think yes and no. That's a yes and no answer. I think my confidence and my knowledge has come through experience. But then when I did the masters, that's all about gaining knowledge that's already in existence. So it's you read for a master's, and I read a lot of stuff. And I took, as you know, I took a year out of Pure when you all ran it for me, which was amazing. You gave me a year out really to go and do that. And I'm forever grateful for you and Hildegard and Vincent and Shelley holding the reins for me during that period of time, because we'd just come out of the Saatchi experience, which again was a lesson in knowing when you've done something which was a little bit too much for you, but it was okay. We pulled it off.
We did.
We pulled it off, and it was amazing. And it was like the school of Saatchi. You know, we did it. We learned a lot. I learned a lot more about myself. Okay, I was a bit ill for a bit. It's a little bit unwell for a bit, but that's okay. You know, because I learned again a valuable lesson in. I realized then that sometimes my attitude of, well, I'll give everything a go once. It's not always a good idea if you haven't thought that through long enough. And I hadn't. I leapt before I looked on that one. And but I don't regret it. I don't. I mean, for the record,
let's just explain that this was you running an international art fair in Saatchi Gallery over a couple of weeks, was it? Yes. Yeah. Bringing work in from around the world, which you had gone out and sourced. You worked with a team, but I'm pretty sure that the driving force was you. And it was in the days when there weren't that many art fairs. We didn't have things like the other art fair taking people out to New York and Los Angeles and places like that. So it was a completely new experience to run something like that. And you were doing it with a good amount of experience, but not necessarily in the art fair world.
No, I'd been running the art fair. I think it was just too big too soon, is what I would say. Yes. Having looked back now, it was too big too soon.
It was enormous.
And I say now, think about the ladder. It's better to take baby steps and just gradually creep up the ladder than have a ladder with massive steps, because then you are likely to misstep and fall. And that's what I learned from that experience. I went from going up the ladder. Now, if I'd have gone another couple of years, I think then it wouldn't have been such a big step. But I went from, I had friends who were running that, you know, I knew Ryan, I knew Mark Westall, I knew Will, who runs the Affordables. These were all in the very early days. This was in the very early days of Affordable. I think it was the first year of the other art fair. So I knew all these people. They were all, you know, people I spent time chatting to and, you know, networking with and what have you. And I'd helped Will a bit with in the early days on Affordable. And Mark from FAD had introduced me to Ryan, who was just setting up the other art fair. So I was in the right community and there was the right skills there. But what there wasn't within the artist and gallery community was really an awareness that this was something that could be done in London in this way, in a landmark building. They were being done in tents in grounds around London, but I went to places like Art Basel and sourced galleries and asked them if they wanted to come. And of course, you know, you say I'm running a art fair in the Saatchi Gallery in London, and they're like, yes, where do I sign? Yes, please. And I'm a very confident person, so you know, I'm giving out very confident vibes that it's all right and it's going to be fine. But it was groundbreaking because we were bringing people in. It was the logistics that were groundbreaking, because no one had ever done this before, coming into a landmark building in the middle of London with all of the restrictions that you have around getting into a building like that and getting out. You can only deliver for a certain number of hours in the day. There are people living, sleeping all around that building, so you can only do it for a very short window. You can't come in the front door because you're coming across heritage land. So there was I'm thinking, now I understand why they do them in the damn tents in the middle of a garden. Now I get it. But I'm like, oh, that should be all right. We've got 4 hours. What's the problem with that? No, you forget that people need to take tea breaks and they need to go off and have lunch. And like, we're in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and someone goes to me, I need a bracket. I'm like, oh, did you not bring this bracket with you? And they're like, well, I thought I had, but I can't find it now. Can you? And I can't put up these other 10 stands unless you can get me this one bracket. And I'm like, but it's 2 a.m. Oh, and then the guys need to eat now. Okay, right. Oh, okay. Well, I'll order in 400 pizzas and then I'll get on the phone and try and find you your bracket at 2 a.m. And you just, until you do it, you don't know what's coming at you. And so I still live by that. Let's just do it and see how we get on, and we'll do the best we can. And I don't regret it. I learned a hell of a lot, and I now realize that it is much better, healthier for both your body and your mental well-being. Because again, in 2013, no one had mentioned anything about mental health. My mental health was taking quite a pasting at this point, because I was being challenged to do things that I had no solutions for. I'm not a builder. I'm not a joiner. I don't know all that. I thought I'd paid someone to do that. And as it transpired, their mental health was suffering and they were not being able to do it. And I was having to step into that void and be that person. So I learned a lot through that. And then after that experience, having had the shakedown of like, let's all sit round in a room, as you remember, like, let's sit down and like now analyze how that all went down and whether we're ever going to do that again. No. Let's work out with my team what went right, what went wrong, what we need to do going forward. And I was not in a good space, you know, from my physical health, as you remember. So I decided then I needed a year out and I wanted to go and do something constructive with it. So I went and did the masters, and as part of the masters I found out about this thing called mentoring. It came out in my dissertation because they were doing this thing called mentoring in Australia. I was like, what's that? And yeah, people had said mentoring, but I hadn't really talked about what that meant. And then I did some more investigation about mentoring, and I came across this thing called coaching. I was like, what's that then? And so I went, and in the interests of research, I went and did a kind of coaching free thing in London. I was like, well, you know, as part of my research for my dissertation, I'll go and do that. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I realized that there was a thing that you could create, like mentoring and coaching, because mentoring opens the door and gives you the answer, whereas coaching opens your door and helps you find the answer. So it's quite different. One is leading you and giving you the answers as you go. Yeah. And coaching opens your inner door, shows you a bit more about yourself and lets you find the answer. Then you've obviously got counseling, which is more therapeutic. And then you've got professional development, which is more education. So all of these things I started to become aware of as I did my dissertation, write my dissertation for my master's. And so I came out of that with a lot more knowledge, and I was like, I need to do a bit more research into this coaching thing. So I started doing a bit, and then I came on upon this brain science thing, this NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which kind of helps people unlock stuff that's locked inside their brain or release themselves from stuff, old stuff that is holding them back. So yeah, definitely all of that moment was the kind of the pivotal moment in Pure's evolution, I'd say, because I came back from that experience a different person with, okay, I think we can do something here.
Confidence in your skills.
Yeah, I had a piece of paper.
Don't we love pieces of paper?
I had a piece of paper, and someone said, "Yeah, you're all right. You're not stupid. You're not an idiot. You're actually quite bright. Yeah, you can do this." And so I was like, "Oh, okay then." And I realized that, and my friend Linda, who was head of art at Eastbourne College, said, "Oh, do you want to come and teach at Eastbourne College?" And I was like, "Oh, could I?
Back to the teacher.
Could I do that?" And so she said, "Yeah." And then there was a whole set of circumstances, but I ended up the first day in Eastbourne College with 42 kids in front of me in an auditorium, like in a kind of like a lecture theatre, with her not there because there was a personal crisis in her life happening at that point. And I was like, whoa. So I just stood there, no prep really, and did a whole like lecture to them. And at the end of it, they stood up and clapped. And I was like, Jesus, this is insane. What is happening here? This is insane. And they were like, wow, no one's ever told us any of that. I just talked to them about how their brain worked and what they were feeling, because they were sixth formers. They'd just done their GCSEs. They're just coming into doing A-levels. And I said, this is what's happening now in your brain. And this is what you're going to be experiencing. And the next 2 years are going to be quite life-changing for you. And you're going to come out of it quite a different human being to what you were when you did your GCSEs. And I explaining to them why you procrastinate, and, you know, how the power of just going for it and believing in yourself. And it was and that was a life-changing moment for me. And I was like, wow, crikey, I've got stuff in here that can help other people. I need to share that. I need to share it with as many people as possible. So then I chatted with all of you, as you know, and we said the art fairs were going to kind of end at year 10, didn't we? We kind of gave ourselves a 10-year, so that was 2019, would have been 10 years. And so I said, in that time, I want to pivot the business. So it's much more about this skill sharing and giving, much more about working with artists in groups or one-to-one. But still doing the exhibitions because we love it, and still giving the artists the opportunity to show their work, because that's really important, to get feedback from people looking at it. And then we were offered that opportunity of showing the work at Bannatyne. And we were like, oh, okay, well, if they make a designated gallery for us, then I can see how that could work. So we did that. And then lockdown happened.
We hung the show, and that night we went home and they announced lockdown, and we went back the next morning and took it down again.
We literally hung the first show in that gallery of your work, wasn't it? Of your work and Brenda's work, Brenda Hartell. We hung the first show, and overnight lockdown happened, and we had to go and take it down the next day, because we didn't know how long that lockdown was going to be, and they were going to close the hotel.
The hotel was closing. It was absolute madness. They had no idea what was happening. It was just.
I'd had a few, so I was running group sessions, wasn't I? 20, 30 people at a time would come, and I would do on a particular subject, and then we'd have a Q&A afterwards. And I was doing that there and in various venues, and they all had gradually over the previous 3 weeks been cancelling because people were getting more and more anxious. And so I sat down, and I remember it distinctly because I was downstairs, and I just put my head in my hands, and I was like, Paul, what on earth am I going to do? My husband, that's Paul. And he said, right, you've got half an hour. You can cry for half an hour. And then,
he knows you.
Yeah, and then he said, that's enough of that. and then sit there and think about what you're going to do and come up with an idea. And I was like, okay then. And so I was like, oh, I just done all of this, and we got it, and it was looking amazing, and it was working really well. And then so I sat there and I came up with Art360. And I remember sending you all an email and saying, okay, guys, I think I've got an idea. Can we have a thing called a Zoom? Because I'd gone out on my social media and gone, how do you talk to people? Tell me people how you do this. And they'd come back with all sorts of things. There was all Teams, Zoom. There was other stuff that people were using I'd never heard of. I was like, I just picked one. I just picked Zoom. And I was like, okay, we'll do that. Can we have a meeting? And I remember saying to you, right, I've got this idea. It's called 360, and we're going to interview people, and we're going to do a digital magazine, and we're going to do a digital exhibition, because we're going to do these just chats every week live. And then I found that thing called Crowdcast as well, that we eventually started using. I said, what do you reckon? And you were all, you flipping mad. You all went, you're mad. You're mad. And I was like,
it was a terrifying thought of actually sitting on the computer and having an interview, having a chat, and having to be able to come up with things pretty much immediately off the top of your head. It's hard to remember how scary that felt back in 2019.
And believe me, it was scary for me too. It was scary for me too, because I hate the sound of my own voice. I hate looking at myself on screen. And someone said to me the other day, how'd you do that all day? I said, I don't even see myself now. I don't even see myself on the screen anymore.
No, I must admit, I'm looking at you, not at the whole screen.
Yeah, I look at you. I'm not looking at me. I don't even see myself. I don't hear myself. I never listen to them back. That's a lesson in not making yourself miserable. That's why I say I do them live, unscripted and unedited, because I tried a few where I scripted them. It was ridiculous. I kept going like this. People see the top of my head.
Yeah.
And then you'll read.
I had things spread out around the room, great big boards with huge, like you do at school, with big writing on, with little key things that I had to say.
I just don't.
Now I'm down to a piece of paper with a list of questions.
Yeah, I just don't do any of that now. I trust myself now. I know my ethical viewpoint. I know that I am considered. I won't rush into an answer. I will think about it. I'm happy to take a moment on the screen and go, I'm just going to have a think about that. Because as I say, ethics and how this is in the bag now forever. I think about people like Lee Miller, and, they don't have that archive of her speaking. They have to guess. We've now got thousands of hours of artists speaking about their practice genuinely, themselves, thoughtfully, and that's there forever, and that's there for anyone to listen to. That's really important. What we do now is really important, so it has to be thoughtful, and it has to be ethical. And you look at, I was talking to someone the other day who was doing they're doing the replanning of a big square in the middle of Glasgow, and he said, the biggest thing he's dealing with is the negotiation of which of the monuments go back and which don't, because of the whole Black Lives Matter, and everyone matters, not just, everybody's life matters. But we have to remember that some people have had I speak from a position of rich white privilege.
Yes.
And I must always be careful with that, because there are other people who, and I was listening to the interview between Louis Theroux and Stormzy, and he was saying, Storms is really interesting interview, just watch it if you get the opportunity. And he said, I embody Black and I'm proud of it. And I'm like, oh, you, because there is no difference between any of us, but there is, because we've had such different life experiences and evolution, and we have to be so mindful and thoughtful of that, and considerate of, I want to know what they think, and I would go with that, because they're the ones who've suffered. I've just happened to be in this body, and that's just luck, isn't it? That's just luck of the draw. But
you've used this body to help so many people.
That's my mission in life.
Yes.
My mission, my sole reason for getting out of bed now is to, with my own family and with my own kids, as well as with all of you, is to enrich, to empower, to be thoughtful, be mindful, be conscious, have those difficult conversations, and help you, hold your hand, support you, but don't hold you in such a way that you don't grow. Because I want you to be able to share. I can't do this forever.
No.
I need to know that there is more people coming who can do this, because it's always going to be a need, because we're evolving and we're learning more and we're growing all the time. But as I said, you know, back in the day, I didn't know what mental health was. I didn't know what neuroscience was. There'll be other things we still do. What do we not know? And that's what drives my PhD ambition, is epistemology. What the power of knowledge? What do we not? What do I not know that I don't know that I didn't know I didn't know? You know,
and I want to know.
And I want to know. I want to keep. I'm so curious. I'm so curious to know what else is to be revealed, because so much has been revealed in my journey that I know there's so much more that I don't know, that I don't even know, and I don't know that I didn't know that I didn't need to know it. It's bonkers. It's like
you spend quite a lot of time helping artists with finding their creative journey. Do you have anybody that will come along next from you that you're training and helping in the coaching side of things? And do you have a community there?
I've got a couple of people who have expressed an interest in coming up and helping and being part of what I do. I am very mindful of that, because I need to be absolutely sure that the next person embodies the ethos of what I do. This is not about making money. I have to charge for my time, because that sets a good example to the artists, that you charge value. You know, I'm valuable and I charge for that, because I don't want to set up a system and I don't want to reinforce a system where people aren't paid, because we live in a society based on money.
Yes.
You know, we live in a capitalist society. That's where we live. We don't live in a bartering society. So when I am helping people grow a career, I don't want to be the one who undermines that by going, oh yeah, but you can pay me nothing, because that's not ethical. So I charge to set a good example. Also, I have bills to pay, and I've earned the right. I've done the groundwork. I've earned the right. But what I don't ever want is to exploit, or to have someone who can't access my services but really needs it. Then I will consider bursaries, and I do, as you know, very carefully every year take on 2 or 3 artists who don't pay, but that's very much within a considered bursary system of helping. But I expect something from them, that as they gain the skills, then they have to give back. So there is a very much a pay it forward, but you pay it forward. If I take people on like that, that I have an expectation that they will, and they always have. There's I very much ingrained that into the system. But when I bring someone, when I'm thinking about who I might bring to my side and into the team, and as you know, I've grown the team very slowly. So we now have Chris, who is absolutely brilliant, who does all the creative side, which I know you're very happy about. You used to do a lot of that. Yeah, because Louisa,
and she does a much better job than I was doing. It's absolutely fantastic what she's come up with.
I don't say it's better. I say that it was what you did was appropriate for our journey at that time.
Okay.
Now Chris is appropriate to the journey of a professional business, because she's a professional doing a professional job, and she's paid to do that job. And we have Caitlin, who does all the photography, and I used to do that. I can't do everything. So, and she does filmmaking, which is a new thing after COVID, that we now all do films and everything. And we have Serena, who is Jonathan Haitley's wife, who I've trained. Yes. So I trained Serena to run Jonathan's business because, again, I like to empower. I don't like to hold the reins and be in charge of that. And now she helps us, but I've trained her. So she very much understands what my response is likely to be in a situation. Yeah. She'll still come and ask, but I'm confident she's more likely, and the same with Caitlin and Chris, that they're more likely to answer in a way that they know I would answer. And yeah, we'll just gradually, I don't expect the team to get very much bigger than that, but I do have a mind to bring in a couple more people who can stand beside me and coach. But at the moment, they're not there yet. So, Marcus is great. Marcus is lovely. Yes. And he's very similar to me in attitude, but he is an artist and he has a career, and I want him to pursue that as much as I want him to help me. And they've just moved to Hastings, and he and Tessa are, finding their feet. So yeah, him in his journey, it might be in a couple of years' time he is ready, but at the moment he's still very much an artist, and he just helps out with some of the early stages of people finding their way into Pure. Yeah.
Okay, I'm conscious that we've been talking, well, you've been mostly talking for nearly an hour.
Yeah, I think we're nearly done.
We're nearly done. Can you just give me 3 key memories from Pure? 3 things. I'll give you mine. One of mine was one of the early art fairs that we had at Powder Mills. You had a dress, and the idea was we had to go underneath the dress and sit and listen. And the voice of the artist, I'm sorry, I can't remember her name, and I feel terrible about that.
Jenny Edbrook.
Jenny Edbrook. The voice, the words, the whole sensation. I'm still getting goosebumps when I think about that experience. You brought that experience to us. And it was quite a challenge to encourage people to get in and under the dress, but I was so glad that I did. It was a really wonderful experience of words having such huge amount of meaning in the way that she presented them, and the words that were there, and the thinking behind it. So that's one of mine.
I love immersive art. I love people experiencing it. I think that's why the interview has been so great, because I love the fact that people can immerse themselves into it. You're not asking them to do anything. You're just asking them to be. And we don't get very many opportunities in life to just be, to sit quietly. Meditation, which is something I found in lockdown, which is life-changing. That literally changes the mechanics in your brain. And I think that dress,
go on.
That dress was kind of the start of all those interviews, if you look back. And that dress, and then we had the hanging sculpture, the felted hanging sculpture. I always try, in any exhibition I create, I try to create a moment that isn't just there for someone to buy something to take home with them, but to experience. And like the current exhibition, we've got the Lydia Carter figure in that is very emotional. And when we had the private view on Friday, there were a lot of people standing, just, giving their feelings and their responses to that piece of work. And so, yeah, that's something that's very important to me, is that thoughtful, giving the opportunity for people to sit, just be in their own thoughts and just immerse themselves in the art. So yeah, I agree. That was amazing, that piece of art. Moments. I think one particular moment was having Vincent and Shelley inside a tower trying to negotiate where you put plugs for the lights, and you and I standing outside listening to them. It was like a comedy sketch. And honestly, being with those 2 guys when they put up a fair, as much as it can be frustrating because we're like, come on, we're on a time limit. Get on with it. Honestly, life enhancing. life enhancing it
Absolutely.
is. And then sitting down afterwards and having fish and chips on the carpet, you know, is just, it's life enhancing. It's like, the reality is people, the public come in and see this very beautiful looking, all very serene exhibition, and they love it, but our experience is quite different.
We had
And
the Laurel and Hardy experience.
yeah, and I love it. I love
Brilliant.
it.
Yes.
It fills me up. It fills my happiness bank up. And so, yeah, that's a big experience, a big part of why I do it, because I enjoy the human contact. And next year in 2023, I'm going to do a 2-day workshop on running your own, how to put together your own exhibition. Because I think a lot of people, this is one of the things I need people to learn, so they don't rely on me to always do it. So come along and learn. It's a skill.
Yes, I did during the lockdown, I spent a lot of time exploring and playing with techniques and ideas, and trying to pull that together into a show is a really rewarding experience, making you actually think about why you're doing it, what the work means, selecting the pieces and how they talk to each other and what the conversation is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that certainly had a huge impact on the work that I'm doing now, and almost, yeah, it's formed the narrative of where I'm going. So that would be a really valuable experience.
Well, I do this at Eastbourne College for the sixth formers every year. I do a curation course, and we pull together an exhibition. We brainstorm ideas. We approach the artists, or they make the work themselves, and we put on an exhibition for Speech Day. And they find it incredibly rewarding. And I thought, why aren't I doing this for the wider audience? So I'm going to do that. So yeah, the dress, the people, yeah, the filling my happiness bank up with the people. And then I will say something that's been life-changing for me just recently is our trip to Paris. We went to Paris, and we've been doing these, you know, because I think artists need to immerse themselves in art. So not only do the public need to immerse themselves in art, but artists need to immerse themselves in art. And it gives confidence, it gives validation. You can have amazing conversations as a result, just in your group or with the other gallerists or whatever. And we just went last week to the new Paris Plus in Paris, which I love anyway, you know, any excuse to go to Paris. And we went to Paris Plus, and I spent most of my time in the emerging area because it was just so amazing. But I had the most amazing conversations with gallerists showing work there. And there was a lot of female gallerists, and there was a lot of textile and construction and art, not atypical of an art fair, you know, not in the other section there was the Picassos and the Magrittes, etc. But in this emerging section there was artwork that was not atypical of an art fair. And then having the conversations with the group of artists that I took afterwards and during was just, it was life enhancing. And I felt filled up with motivation and enthusiasm for what I do. And it just pushes me on. And I'm like, wow, you know, there's another thing I didn't realize I hadn't experienced, and now I've experienced, I want to do more of. And, you know, and there were a lot of people after saying, oh my God, Paris looked amazing. Why didn't I come? I'm like, well, I don't know why you didn't come. Come next year. Because we're definitely going to make that an annual thing. But it was amazing. And we took the Paris tour bus all around Paris, and we just used it as like a glorified taxi. And we just went a stop, and we're like, oh, there's a Frida Kahlo exhibition. Everyone get off, get back on. Oh, look at that amazing view. Everyone get off, get back on. And then, you know, so we used that. It was a very holistic way of seeing Paris, because you know, you saw it all, but you could keep getting on and off, and you didn't have to listen to the thing, the mic, the headphones, or you could. So no, I think that's been a very recent epiphany. So yeah, but yeah, I think all of it's amazing. I just feel I say this all the time, and I absolutely mean it. It is my privilege. It is absolutely my privilege that you all trust me enough to let me do this. because it's my life's privilege to do it.
Thank you.
It
And
really
thank
is.
you
It
for
really
everything
is.
that you do. Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful thing, Pure. It's given me a huge amount of confidence, both in, I think what we always need to remember about Pure is that you get back far more than you give, but if you give, you will get back even more. It just is a whole holistic feeling of being part of a wonderful collection of people.
Yeah, the people are, that's it.
It's
Underpinning everything is the people, and that's what gets me out of bed, because I feel it's not a duty, it's not a job, it's not a job. It is a pleasure and a privilege. And that's what, that's the ethics and the ethos that underpins it. I'm very mindful of every single person, and I think about you all, and I think about you at night and in the day, and I'll be like doing something and an email will come up. So this is a classic example, is an email arrived from British Council offering grants to do cross-cultural projects. Appeared on my email like on, I don't know, Wednesday last week. And I was like, wow, that means Lydia, who's a Spanish artist living in the UK, could work with Ger, who's a Spanish artist in Barcelona. So I immediately emailed them and said, would you be interested in this? They both said yes. I said, okay, I'll email introduce you to each other, have a chat, and then, let me know, and I'll come in and brainstorm with you once you've got some ideas together. Then they met on Friday at the Art360. So then they had another set of conversations, which was great because they've met each other. And that's amazing. And now I'm excited. I may not have anything to do with the outcome of it, but it's just the trigger.
The catalyst.
Yeah, exactly. And, I get offered a lot of stuff. So I'd just like to share that out with people and, let other people. I can't ride with every idea. I'm very focused now on, being here and present for all of you.
But if you rode with every idea, we wouldn't grow.
No.
And part of what you get out of it is us growing.
Yeah, so
it was lovely on Friday to talk to Mark, for example, and seeing the change in his demeanour, his confidence, the work that he's producing now. You could feel the joy that he was receiving from having had your encouragement and helping him to grow.
Yeah, so he was the one who came to me as a sculptor, as a wood sculptor.
Yes.
Is now doing the drawings and selling the drawings and showing the drawings, and they're incredible. Yes. And he's getting more confident. And now he had a chat with Vincent because Vincent obviously now being the curator of the SGFA. And I said to him, right, the next step for you is to now find your tribe, because finding your tribe is really important. And Pure will always be your tribe, but there are other tribes.
Yes.
That's it. As I say, we don't hold people here. It is about growing and moving on and spreading that message and that joy and the opportunity that we all have to access our joy and be truly happy, because we have one life.
Yeah. Living
it in a state of pain, living it in a place of misery, why would you do that? Why would you do that to yourself? You're going to make yourself ill. That's life limiting.
Yes.
And having had a parent who had a life-limiting illness, I'm not doing that to myself. I want to live a joyful life. So on that note, I think everyone's heard enough from me.
So thank you very much, Lesley Samms. That's been a fascinating journey through Pure, and good luck with the rest of the Art360 edition 4 interviews and the conversations, really. The chats.
The chats. We've got those, and I've also got Pure Talks season 5, which also only started during lockdown, where I'm interviewing some amazing people. I'm interviewing Anne Desmet RA, and a couple of gallery owners as well. So a really eclectic number of people. Absolutely. Liz Gilmore from Hastings Contemporary. So we always run alongside the Art360 artist interviews. I then do the talks with other people, industry people, so that the artists get something, and the industry and other people get something as well. So it's, yeah, it's very holistic. It's the 360.
360.
The 360. So yeah, thank you. And just go to the website and you'll see everything, or the YouTube channel, or Instagram.
Yes.
Oh, and apparently now after Paris we have a TikTok. That's terrifying. Ooh. I know. Ooh. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But it can sit there for a while. I don't know what to do with that. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Louisa. That was really lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you.